Welcome back to the News from the Real World podcast. I'm Quinn.
I'm Jess.
I'm Jody.
And I'm starting it off this segment with a little article about fences. There's a new production at the McCarter Theater in New Jersey, Princeton, New Jersey, that the friend of CMU's, Phylicia Rashad, has directed. And there was this lengthy interview with her post-show with her and Melissa Harris Perry, who's an MSNBC host, moderating it. And Phylicia Rashad basically, gives some good insights into the play. Fences, August Wilson, kind of ties in with our whole August Wilson Center story. I liked. Do you guys know the play Fences?
I don't.
Shame on both of you.
I've heard of it and I've heard about it, but I don't know it.
Well, basically, it deals with this this family in Pittsburgh and this patriarch Troy, who has several children from several relationships, and his wife Rose. And Troy has kind of, for various reasons, in the time in which he is living, had showed great promise as a baseball player when he was younger, and never achieved that dream, and works now as a trash collector, but has kind of moved his way up to trash truck driver in Pittsburgh. And his son is up for a big football scholarship, and some tensions arise at the next generation kind of being able to achieve dreams that the previous generation wasn't able to. And it's at the heart you have this very interesting character full of contradictions in Troy, who's at once very likable and loving, but also not a good guy in a lot of ways too. It's like, and very embittered, and it has caused him to make some poor choices and cruel choices. And so Phylicia Rashad gives lots of insights on it.
Lots of insights. She was full of thought-provoking things to say. I thought, kudos to you, Ms. Rashad. I actually thought that the moderator was asking really great questions.
I thought that too.
She asked,
Smart lady.
my favorite question was about, there's all this comment all the time about male directors directing women.
Yeah.
And she asked her, how do you step into this role as a female director directing this very complex male, and I thought that was...
Her quote was, she finds herself as a female director in what is traditionally a very male role, that she is very open to strength and accepting of vulnerabilities in people and characters. Whereas she, her take was that, male directors tend to be very strong and aggressive and maybe overly so, and not as attuned to vulnerabilities in humanity.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
She was, and I also liked what she had to say about preserving arts programs.
Yeah, she talked a lot about that.
Yeah,
in
and she
schools.
said the first step was, she said arts programs are obviously very important, but she said the first step was not in preserving arts programs, but was in teaching civics and economics. And
to enact social change, to preserve things like arts programs in schools.
I absolutely could not agree more. I thought that was very, very great.
The only kind of lame question Ms. Harris Perry asked her was, how did the cast not treat you like Claire Huxtable?
He's always going to get one in there, though.
Yeah. Cosby Show reference. There were no comments, sadly. Nobody listened to the podcast. CMU, you've let us down twice this week.
Come on.
I liked that she made a really good point that the story of Fences is really a universal story and not just meant for African American audiences, although it takes place in an African American community. I appreciated that. It's a truly great play. And we shouldn't ever just look at it as this is a black play, this is a white play. It's a really wonderful play. And she summed up the character of Troy, I thought, in a very astute manner, where he's he's in the midst of social change in the time that it takes place in the late 50s, but he's too myopic and can't see past his own hurt and kind of chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very interesting
She was,
podcast.
yeah.
Yeah.
She was very articulate.
Very. And the master of the pregnant pause.
Yes. That too.
Dramatic
That too.
pause. Thank you, Ms. Rashad. Moving on, we have a contract article, Jess.
Yay.
Tell us what's happening in the business.
Well,
Contracts.
don't get screwed. The contract provisions every creative needs to know. This is a student pick from 99u.com by Vinay Jain. And this article actually outlines something we talk about a lot in our production management classes, which is what kind of things you need to have in your contract in order to make sure that you're not getting screwed over and to protect yourself from anything that might happen. The article opened up with the story about the author's friend who was doing the computer software coding gig, and every time he would get in touch with the people who hired him, the job had changed, and then they expected him to just keep doing more and more work, and they never actually paid him until they finally just cut his losses and walked away without any money, but having put all this work into it. And the whole issue was that he never actually had a written contract with them. It was just one of those, oh yeah, I'll do this for you, and that's kind of where it ended.
In the entertainment business, this has been, an issue for years on verbal agreements versus, written agreements.
And making sure you have everything you need in your written agreement.
Yeah.
So some of the things that the author pointed out you should definitely have in your contract is clearly define the scope of work, nail down everything related to money, make sure you're clear on who will own your work, which is really important in the creative worlds, address how changes to the project will affect your fees, be clear that the written agreement is the whole agreement, and that kind of protects you from, oh, well, then you're going to do this too, and how about you do this too, and that just kind of snowballing out of control. So.
I thought it was I thought it was great. I thought it was really relevant. I wish I had known that, many of those things before I took my first contract out of college.
Yeah.
Mostly the thing about the whole contract being in writing, just because, defining how changes in your work need to be changes in compensation as well.
Yeah.
I think these things are valuable to learn. A lot of things, even when they are clearly defined, just because it's clearly defined doesn't mean that it's
you both understand it to mean the same.
Yeah, exactly. I think establishing a level of expectation is absolutely key in any relationship.
I think the thing that's hardest with this, and I'm sure we all know this to a degree, but working for people that you have a pre-existing relationship with or feel close to somewhat.
That can even be the hardest.
And that can often be the hardest when it comes down to matters of business. And sometimes an issue of even having a contract gets skirted over because you don't even think about it. Like, oh, well, we're just friends and we're working together. It's not a big deal, but it's still important to get it in writing.
Yeah.
There have been several times already in my career where I wished I'd had certain provisions in writing, just to protect the amount of work and creativity that I put into a project.
Of course.
And then suddenly, it's still just one person's name on the script when I've, sat and had many, many meetings in Starbucks revising and shaping. Yeah.
I think the one clause I always hate seeing in contracts is and any other duties as assigned.
As assigned or as needed or as necessary.
I feel like that's the one thing you really want to avoid in contracts is those overall clauses that include anything else that we might decide you have to do is what you have to do. And that's where you need to start getting really specific about the job is the job and this is what you're paying me to do and stuff like that.
And this is what you're not paying me to do.
Totally. Well, moving on to something. Oh, do you have a quote?
Of course we have some
you have
comments.
A quote? Not of course. They let us down twice this week.
No, there were a bunch on this one. I was actually surprised.
Oh, good.
Student
What does CMU have to say?
Camille says, this seems obvious, but at the same time, I know that many freelancers get trapped in terrible situations because there's no clear final agreement. What I especially liked about this article is that it raises awareness of this problem, explains why it's important and how to deal with it, and gives examples that someone can actually use to put together a contract, which is really helpful. I think he explained what the thing he was saying meant, and then give an example of this is how you would say it in the contract.
Because your first thing might be a contract that you have to write yourself.
Yeah, and you may have no
Yeah.
idea legally how to phrase all that stuff.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Wow.
Contracts.
Contracts.
Moving on to something a little more fun.
Yeah,
Movie stunts.
movie
You got a
stunts.
movie article this week.
I did.
You did. You snatched it up from me.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah,
Do it.
So
All right.
tell us about some cool
So,
movies.
the most insanely complex stunts from science fiction and fantasy films. This is quite obviously a student pick from io9.com by Emily Stamm and Charlie Jane Anders. And I have to. So basically, this article was just a collection. There were a couple videos, mostly just images and like little brief blurbs about these really complex stunts that have been, achieved without using CGI. That the company's actually
I'm a big
shelled out.
proponent of no CGI.
Shelled out the bucks and did and executed and have been rather successful. And so I'm just going to start with my favorite one being the rotating corridor from Inception.
You know, I saw that, and the first thing I thought was, of course this wasn't CGI. Of course they actually did this. And I don't know why I thought that would be so easy to pull. Not easy, but like so you could pull it off without CGI. I don't know why in my brain I was like, of course that would be.
I still don't know what that movie was about, though.
We just watch it
I'm
7 more
such a
times.
Yeah,
Maybe you'll get
okay.
I'm
it.
such a sucker. I love Christopher Nolan. He's probably one of my favorites of our generation.
Wrong style.
I know.
But what's it about, Jody? Well, you have a dream, and then you're inside the dream, and then the
But
dream
then you get this
inside
really
that.
cool hallway where they run
Oh,
around in circles.
silly.
It's a hallway.
Yeah.
Over
Okay.
500
I mean,
crew
it was
members.
a cool sequence.
I thought that was cool.
Over
Very
500
cool.
The
crew
sequence
members.
wasn't that
Yeah.
long. I mean, it was
No.
a good length, but it wasn't.
So that was-
It kept
that was-
cross-cutting to it. in
That was the
whole last
trend.
act.
That was the trend with all of these stunts. Is how long it took them to prepare
for
the
tiny.
Yeah.
scores of
Yeah.
hundreds of hours for just like
I mean, there were
very short,
there were
very
a couple
short
that
things.
were like, oh, we rehearsed for 8 weeks.
Yeah,
we
there
rehearsed
was the
for 3
Mission
months.
Impossible one
Yeah.
where he's like
Terrifying.
climbing the tallest building. In
Yeah,
the
he was
world.
They did not pay me enough to do that.
Oh my
Yeah,
god!
I
And
know.
it said it caught the stunt captain. I forgot his name. Sorry. He said it took 200 hours, 2 on-site engineers, all this preparation,
Yeah.
tons of millions of
They
dollars.
had
He's
to
like,
test all the cables.
Yeah.
he was like, and they even made a special harness for the IMAX camera that went
Yeah.
up with him. And it was like, he said, it was a great stunt and it aged me 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked. I don't remember what the movie was. It was the helicopter chase and the helicopter crash.
Oh, that was
Where-
T2?
Yeah.
Maybe?
I was
Yeah,
teaching-
it
where
was
the
T2.
the cameraman
Like, went under
refused to
the
do it.
cameraman refused
And
to
so
do it.
James Cameron did it. It's
Yeah.
like, I'll do the
I thought that was
freaking
so
stunt.
interesting. I thought
I'll
good for those
film it.
cameramen who are saying, "Hell no, we're not going to do that. It's way too dangerous."
Speaking of tying back to what we're not paid to do in our contracts.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not doing
I
that.
thought that was cool.
You don't think it was like maybe a hair control freakish of Mr. Cameron? You don't think he was
I've
like
heard
you know-
stories of him.
You
Yeah.
know,
He, like,
I mean,
has
if
cameras
he
all over
is
his
and
house.
Yeah.
if he isn't, whatever.
Films
But
everything.
you know what? If he wanted this scene done and the cameraman said, "Hell no, we're not doing it. It's way too dangerous," and he wanted to do it himself, that's his
Sure.
prerogative.
Sure.
And it looks pretty cool.
I don't have any one specific comment. Sorry to disappoint, but there were plenty of comments that it just was, it's great when we hate CGI, and it's great when people shell out the money for real
Yeah.
stunts, and people were just impressed by,
It
what
just
they were
makes it
able to
that
pull
much
off.
More cool.
So much. Because it has texture then. I still think CGI looks like a high-tech cartoon on some level.
Especially, we were talking about the Titanic earlier, so I'll say this. I remember, seeing it in the theaters all those years ago and seeing the iceberg being like, ugh, CGI, that iceberg looks awful.
also-
And when we watch it now, when we watch it, it's just a joke, right?
Yeah.
And when, like, the people walking on the ship, because they don't have as many people as they have CGI'd in, they're
Yeah, I mean, now
Ridiculous.
when we just, everything is CGI.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm going to close it out this week with an article from, also from NewYorkTimes.com Arts Beat. It's by Patrick Healy. It's an editor pick titled "After Complaints, Millie Gets Thoroughly Modern Makeover for Dalton School." So the Dalton School, a private school in Manhattan, canceled a student production of the musical Thoroughly Modern Millie because there's some Asian stereotypes in the play. Takes us back to last week's
and underground
from
human
How I
trafficking.
Met
Yeah.
Your Mother.
That's the other
That's the
minor.
other thing.
That's the other part of it.
Yeah, there's a white slavery ring.
Yeah.
So it got kind of sanitized, and the lyricist and co-book writer of Millie approved to the school's changes that they eventually did. They turned some of the more incendiary segments into kind of a musical review, and I guess his quote on it was, I've given my blessing because while I understand angry parents, for me heartbroken kids trump angry
I thought
parents,
that was
and
great.
he didn't want to let the kids down who'd already put all the work into the production.
And
Yeah.
he offered to
So-
help. He
That's what I thought was
he
so
offered
great.
to help, and he was
Yeah.
like, "Yep, you can use these lyrics instead, and
Yeah.
give this a whirl."
I love that he got so involved in it. It
Yeah.
wasn't just, no, that's my play, like, tough luck, you can't do it.
Well-
he was so willing to work with them and change it in
And
order
he-
to make
he was-
it something.
Right, and then he was willing to give it his own time. He wasn't just
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, sure, y'all do what you need to do." It was, "Here, let me be proactive and help you."
Yeah.
Yeah,
What a great guy. Gold star for him.
Yeah, nice guy. And also, I guess the administrators have decided, that they're turning it into a song review, music review. They're also going to lead a forum with academics and practitioners to discuss theater and race. So, become a big learning thing all around. What'd you guys think?
You know what?
I can understand why the parents wouldn't want it to be occurring because wasn't it 6th to 8th graders? I mean that's
It's a little young to
that's
be
a little
doing
young
that
for
play
that
about
guy.
swipe. Well, they
So-
want to steal you away.
human trafficking.
I think that's
I feel-
arguably, I don't know. Maybe
feel
this
like the-
maybe this makes me racist, but I think that's probably worse than the Asian
Yeah,
stereotypes.
I was just about to say that. I mean, I feel like the Asian stereotypes is something we're exposed to all the time because of how race conscious our
Because of
society
How I Met Your
is.
Mother.
Because of how I
Yes,
met your
exactly.
racism, exactly.
But I mean, when you're that young, you just can't comprehend the idea of human
Yeah.
trafficking.
Well,
So-
maybe, I don't know. Yeah. I was pretty advanced young child. I probably
Were
could
you
have handled it.
very aware of the human trafficking?
I mean,
Right.
I mean, I'm sure.
Are you kidding? Quinn was running human trafficking.
I was running.
Out of
Oh
his-
God,
out of his-
terrible.
Quinn, I don't think I
Terrible.
want you to have my number.
Yeah, exactly. Sarah Keller writes, "Wait, Thoroughly Modern Millie only opened in 2002? I've seen this show and listened to the score a lot, and it always seems so incredibly dated to me that I had always assumed that it must have been something from at least the 50s. It's got some pretty racist and sexist undertones, and they get
It does.
pretty blatant at times. And not much of a message. It might be because it's become a musical performed in every high school across America, but it never struck me as a very good show. It might be parodying attitudes in the 1920s, but that's not something that's going to translate to a high school stage. I agree that it's got some serious issues that need to be changed before it can be performed by 8th graders." So there you have it. Sarah Keller's 2 cents. What do you guys think?
Which makes
Agreed?
I think she has some merit.
She's,
Yeah.
has some valid points.
Yeah.
It's about the moral of the story is about marry for love and not marry for money, because this girl moves
Yeah.
to New York and wants to marry for money. I mean, when you put it that way, she makes a good point. Like, those are not exactly what our feminist friends would say is good,
Yeah.
right? So,
Well, yeah, I don't think I really want to see Thoroughly Modern Millie performed by 8th graders anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, creepy. Well, that concludes this segment of the News from the Real World podcast. In fact, this week, that concludes our week. Join us next week when we discuss more articles and have more witty banter and more sexual undertones. Take care. Have a good week, CMU. I'm Quinn.
I'm Jess.
I'm Jody.
See you soon.
Oh.